Sura II Introduction Reading in English from the Quran, translated by Abdullah Yusuf Ali. Introduction to Surah II, Baqarah. As the opening surah sums up in 7 beautiful verses the essence of the Quran, so this surah sums up in 286 verses the whole teaching of the Quran. It is a closely reasoned argument. Summary. It begins, verses 1 through 29, with mystic doctrine as to the 3 kinds of men and how they receive God's message. This leads to the story of the creation of man, the high destiny intended for him, his fall, and the hope held out to him. I 30 through 39. Israel's story is then told according to their own records and traditions, what privileges they received and how they abused them. I 40 through 86, thus illustrating again as by a parable the general story of man. In particular, reference is made to Moses and Jesus and their struggles with an unruly people, how the people of the book played false with their own lights, and their pride rejected Muhammad, who came in the true line of apostolic succession. I 87 through 121. They falsely laid claim to the virtues of Father Abraham. He was indeed a righteous imam, but he was the progenitor of Ishmael's line, Arabs, as well as of Israel's line. And he with Ishmael built the Kaaba, temple of Mecca, and purified it, thus establishing a common religion, of which Islam is the universal exponent. I 122 through 141. The Kaaba was now to be the center of universal worship and the symbol of Islamic unity. I 142 through 167. The Islamic Ummah, brotherhood, having thus been established with its definite center and symbol, ordinances are laid down for the social life of the community with the proviso I 177 that righteousness does not consist in formalities, but in faith, kindness, prayer, charity, probity, and patience under suffering. The ordinances relate to food and drink, bequests, fasts, jihad, wine, and gambling, treatment of orphans and women, etc. I 168 through 242. Lest the subject of jihad should be misunderstood, it is taken up again in the story of Saul, Goliath, and David. In contrast to the story of Jesus, I 243 through 253. And so the lesson is enforced that true virtue lies in practical deeds of manliness, kindness, and good faith. I 254 through 283. And God's nature is called to mind in the sublime Ayatul Kursi, the verse of the throne. I 255. The surah ends with an exhortation to faith, obedience, a sense of personal responsibility, and prayer. I 284 through 286. This is the longest surah of the Quran, and in it occurs the longest verse, I 282. The name of the surah is from the parable of the Heifer in I 67 through 71, which illustrates the insufficiency of carping obedience. When faith is lost, people put off obedience with various excuses. Even when at last they obey in the letter, they fail in the spirit, which means that they get fossilized, and their self-sufficiency prevents them from seeing that spiritually they are not alive but dead. For life is movement, activity, striving, fighting against baser things, and this is the burden of the surah. This is the main and early Medina Surah. The message of God is a guide that is sure to those who seek His light. But those who reject faith are blind. Their hearts are sealed. Woe to the hypocrites, self-deceived and deceiving others, with mockery on their lips and mischief in their hearts and fear. The clouds that bring fertilizing rain to others, to them bring but deafening thunder peals and lightning flashes, blinding to their eyes.